powerful and unified and progressive and smart and shaping, but in general, it seems like it takes so much time for it feels like nonfiction. Like I don't like it because it takes me out of learning and doing other things for those hours that I would have to commit to gaming, for instance. So it's not that they're not fun, but it seems like in the same way when I feel like I read nonfiction or fiction, I feel like nonfiction is better. And I know people have counter arguments to that, but just for me, that's the way I feel because I don't want to participate in it because I could be more productive of use of an hour reading a book where I learn actual facts or doing something on the internet that isn't simply a trivial game. However, it's clear to me that gaming is very, very important and has some really, really strong culture, and especially as it merges into VR and beyond, it seems like something that really needs to be paid attention to, right? And certainly not something to just be made fun of.
Well, yeah, definitely not the latter. I don't know. Games are complicated. That's how I would put it. There's so many different types of games, and they create their own rules and their own worlds that so much can be said about it. But honestly, I feel the same as you lately. In fact, even in high school, I remember I went through a period where I just stopped playing video games completely for a couple of years, and I just didn't want anything to do with it. I would just get too sucked in and too lost, and I didn't feel like it was productive for my life. But I do think there was a time before that where games were really an incredibly powerful thing for me. They were almost like therapy in a way, an escape from the world, but I was learning a lot through the games. And I think games can be an incredible teaching and learning tool, and they're so good at getting you to do something, even maybe something you don't want to do, like learn something. So I find them to be incredibly powerful motivators. And it's up to the game designer to kind of, what are we going to motivate people to do? And what are we going to try to teach them to do through these games?
So do you encounter, where do you think we're at percentage of the population-wise who looks unfavorably about video games? Is there a lot of resistance there, like not taken seriously as a thing?
No, I don't. I don't think so. I mean, I was gonna say like it's very complex, right? So, there's definitely like lately there was a thing called Gamergate that happened.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you about that. Can you tell? It
Right.
has something to do with. See, I can't. I thought I knew what it was until I tried to say it out loud. I'm gonna let you say
Well,
it.
actually, I'm not much of an expert on it either. But I mean, basically, what happened is. There was a girl who was making these videos on YouTube where she was kind of critiquing video games for just the gratuitous violence and sexism and stuff, and then a certain subculture of gamers just exploded, and these are like the worst types of gamers online who are really really violent and abusive.
Is that like the prototypical angry white dude in his mom's basement that's a jerk and a loser, but he lashes out online and leaves comments and plays video games? Is it that guy?
Well, yeah, that is a real thing, and that probably was most of Gamergate. Was those types of people, but I don't really know.
And what did they do when they lash out? They attacked that girl or what lady?
Yeah, I think they just, it started out as just comments, and then it turned into stalking and, finding her phone number and hacking and all sorts of like really bad stuff. So yeah, that was like a tragedy. And obviously it became such a big thing that it makes gaming culture look really bad. But gaming culture is totally not like that. That's like a small minority. I would say, like you said, like most people in games are very progressive and hoping to do positive change. And people are very, at least in the world that I live in, which is like indie game world, there's such an awareness of social issues and like an extreme level of sensitivity to people who are different and people who are trying to do different things. So
maybe game players and people like this as a fringe thing, or it started as a fringe thing, although I think it's going to become, I'm going to think it's going to fuse with the mainstream at some point, technologically at least, but at least it's an alternative thing, or people that maybe were, let's say, classically nerds or marginalized to some degree. So they're either, there's a few people that may be bad eggs in there, but you usually see that in marginalized groups, how they kind of band together and are aware and care about stuff. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I
So there's
mean, I
probably
feel
an
like
open-minded group that is. I bet it's very accepting. Like, come as you are in the gaming culture. It doesn't matter who you are. What you know what I mean? It's not social hierarchy. It's a smaller community and they're pretty together at least.
yeah, totally. Yeah, I'd say so. I mean, I think there's kind of like a big uh I mean, games are everywhere now, so it's hard to say who is a gamer and who is not. It's like
Yeah.
it's like a gradient, because there's tons of people who play games on their phones, but then there's people like the room I'm in who have like every single console and like a full VR setup. It just depends on your level of passion,
Yeah.
basically, and how much time you spend doing it.
Do you have a problem with do you think there's credence to that stuff about games being violent or that causing violence or being a problem?
Uh, no, I don't think games cause violence necessarily.
Grand Theft Auto makes you go become a drug dealer, that kind of thing.
No, I don't think so. I know tons of people who play Grand Theft Auto
Yeah,
and are not drug dealers. Uh, yeah, I mean, as a kid, I played crazy violent games. I remember I bought Resident Evil 2, and my dad was worried about it. And eventually he let me buy it, and I played it, and I'm not going around shooting zombies. So, I don't know. And I grew up playing Doom and Wolfenstein and Halo and all that stuff. I mean, those games are just about shooting. And when you're playing the game, you're really thinking of it like a puzzle. How do I run around? How do I strategically be in the right place and shoot this person at the right time?
Yeah.
And as a gamer, you kind of become disconnected from the image, the fantasy. It becomes more about the strategy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, strategy is a big word for it, and it's problem solving and strategy, which are big deals. Like they say, some of the best political leaders and Cold War people and things like that were like poker players and cards and strategists is a thing that they were all really good at. They didn't have video games, but you can almost have imagined that some of the big, when people talk about chess, it's like a chess match in a political thing or a negotiation or a business deal. Strategy is a big deal. It's problem solving, thinking on your feet. All those kinds of skills are possible to be there. And it wasn't that much when we were just playing Mario, but now I imagine that's probably some of the most ripe place that attracts people that are good strategists for anything, good problem solvers and thinkers, and same as chess would have been looked at. It. Chess is a game, and you think the smartest people in the world play chess, and then gamers are dummies or something. So I think that must be false, impression. Although, like I said, I'm still not a gamer, but I just feel like we're going to reach a point, and I think maybe once we get into VR and see its actual, real, practical applications, that it's just going to become the most mainstream thing possible.
Yeah, I sort of feel like games are the ultimate form of entertainment. That's why before I was making more videos and films and stuff like that, and games just really seduced me as an art format because it's everything. It's animation, it's storytelling, it's fantasy,
total
but it's
engagement.
Also,
it's less passive than sitting watching the TV.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I think there's a chance in the future to make games that are more like being inside a movie, but a movie where you're making decisions constantly, and you actually have meaningful results. That we still haven't really achieved that. Storytelling in games is still relatively simple in terms of the player's interaction with it. Mm-hmm. So, but I do think it's going to take over, and it's going to be the ultimate thing eventually.
So I believe that it will transcend entertainment really quickly and turn into purely learning and education and training. I think I think as soon as it becomes ultimate at entertainment, it'll at that same moment completely unlock training and learning, education kind of stuff. So if you think about it, I think that's kind of happening already with stuff like podcasts and other things, or even go all the way back to my kids watch Baby Einstein. So yes, TV, we know TV's bad for kids, which I don't believe, but it's they're learning at least. So it's okay, so they learn a nursery rhyme, and they learn how to sing the pitches, and they learn the letters, and that's all great. Now, if babysitter's better, or you should be present with your kids, I understand that, but these things are helpful technologies and app-based games to teach my kids to do computer code. George has a couple of coding games. And
Oh,
I
wow.
take that very seriously. I mean, she learns you do this, and this is the result. You put the arrow this direction, it'll make that guy move this way. And it's built to train stuff like that. And that's, of course, not VR. It's just an iPad game. But it's obviously already fusing. And I think some of the best things in entertainment are a lot of times now fused with history, like Hardcore History, the podcast, or Drunk History, the TV show. People would not want to watch a TV show that was just people getting drunk, but it's drunk history. So you got a smart professor gets drunk for entertainment value and then tells you about Abraham Lincoln. That's, we're blurring those lines really quickly. I think there's something rewarding about being entertained while you're being educated. But I think VR has just got to be, I can't even imagine what you could do to train children when VR is a totally integrated technology.
Yeah, like I was just thinking about how I learned Japanese just a couple years ago, and I actually tried in college to learn Japanese in a traditional like classroom, and my teacher was really good, but even so, I gave up after like 3 months. I was like, this is just too hard. This is so boring.
Yeah.
And then a couple years ago, I found this like online kind of textbook, and I also found like a sort of gamified learning thing. And it was incredible, and I was learning like so fast, and it got me over that hinge of like, oh, I can actually do this, and this is fun. So yeah, I think like using video games to teach will just be an incredible thing in the future, and I'm surprised there's not more of it in school already.
Well, people like to say, oh, screens are bad for kids, or as if that's not. And in fact, there's a study came out recently. They used to say kids shouldn't look at screens until they're 2, and now they've even backed off on that and said, nah, that like nobody wants you to substitute parenting for an iPad. Understood, but beyond that, there's nothing inherently bad about that technology, and people will make counter arguments to that, to be sure. But it's I put it this way: it's freaking inevitable. So at least that's what the future is going to be like. And I don't know where, I don't know where screens go if we're into projecting or visual interfaces to right into our optic nerve. I don't know but there's no. It seems to me no point in resisting the technology and VR and stuff like that.
Yeah, you're right. It's kind of inevitable. I mean, I'm not an expert on child development or anything, but I know when I was a kid, I was using my dad's Mac, and that's how I learned how to read. So there was this little bunny that like taught me how to read, and I learned like really fast.
And
so
you're in the first generation that's ever happened to, which is astonishing, because when I was little, we did not. That didn't exist. And when you were little, your dad had a Mac computer with Mavis Beacon teaches typing or whatever, those kinds of things. Like that came out when I was in high school and stuff. There were computers that you maybe kind of could use, but you guys grew up with it. And I think that's obviously going to change the world. But can you imagine can you even imagine once we get into the real technical child development stuff and learn more about the brain itself and how it works? What you'll be able to do with immersive sensory technology like VR. Like if you could put on a mask, the VR helmet onto, say, a baby that's 6 months old, and you do it
I don't know about that.
Well, just think of whatever the technology is like that. What if we understood enough about the brain and its impulses? Like right now, they tell my daughter, they say, make sure she crawls before she walks. That's how she learns her hand-eye coordination, blah, blah, blah. So imagine in the future, I'm not talking about, and this is like a supreme hack, I think, is what's going to go on, is we talk about genetic editing and modification at that level and all these other things we're going to do in the future of humanity. But simply, if you understand the brain enough more, understand coordination and child development on a higher level, which is certainly what we're doing, and then program stuff like that into technology, you would be able to put on a mask on a 6-month-old that's learning to crawl and give it feedback, response, goals, oriented stuff. And you're going to same thing with music. You have it like, repeat this pitch, you get a treat. The thing you like that it's understanding that makes you smile happens every time you make a verbal sound in the right direction. Stimulus, response, programming things that would they'd be silly, but it would work. And if we understood that super well, we'll have child development on a level that you could not even imagine. At which point, I would suggest it'll be completely irresistible. So if you have kids going into kindergarten that are 10 times ahead because they've been wearing VR headsets for 45 minutes a day from the age of 6 months, they may have the best hand-eye coordination and memory and pitch awareness and all these things that could be probably programmed in during the most prominent years of child development. because we know that those are the most plastic moldable years, but we don't know exactly what happens in the brain. And if I get her to do this, this will happen and this will happen. But with enough data, big data testing and technology, then clearly I think that's it'll be completely irresistible. You won't let your kid be the dummy that doesn't have the, the hand-eye coordination and music patch programmed into them before they're 1 year old.
Yeah, I could totally see that happening. I feel like that will be possible in not too long.
But people will resist it for sure.
Yeah.
At first.
But I mean, like you said, if your neighbor's kid has this like total advantage, you're going to be like, oh, why wouldn't I do that?
Yeah. Or if we outlaw it and China doesn't, what do you think happens? It's just irresistible. You won't be able to outlaw it.
I think the crazy thing, thinking about that kind of stuff and connecting it with like brain interfaces, which are being worked on really heavily right now. Like Elon Musk just started a company called Neuralink, and they're working on direct brain interfaces. And it's obviously an investment in the future because it's not here yet, at least in like a high fidelity. Sure. There's really basic brain sensor headsets that exist now, but they're really not very good. It's like if you meditate and calm down enough, it will like affect a ball on a screen going up and down. That's like not that interesting, but I think in not Step too long, it'll start. Yeah, it's kind of the first step, but like it's going to get more and more high fidelity to the point where we can start to detect more basic things like emotion and kind of basic thoughts. So like that's where it gets really crazy, because if you could put that on a baby and like see how they're developing in real time, and then the software is like constantly updating and changing to how their brain is forming, like that would be insane. But yeah, it's still kind of a long ways out.
Yeah. Yeah, well, of course, but I mean, you never know how fast those things will go. But you could immediately do VR training. What is the education? Do you know of any education-based VR stuff that's happening now? Like just teach you to shoot free throws. I mean, you could do that virtually, or golf swing. I mean, anything.
I mean, I don't know. Well, I know there's like medical, like there's lots of startups who are getting funding to do medical training in VR.
Medical, that'd be the other huge one.
Yeah, like training
what will
a doctor
they do for
how
that?
to do surgery. Well, it's just so accurate. Like the hand tracking that we have now with VR, with a Vive, which looks like this. It's just it's so perfect to simulate like a tool in virtual reality. So if you want to have like a scalpel and you want to simulate that and teach a doctor how to do surgery, like it's really good for that.
Would it go so far to where you could have a doctor in Singapore that was really good drone surgery on me in Seattle?
Yeah. I think
where
that
he was like wearing the mask and had hand tracking, and he was just sitting in his lab in Singapore and see like in real time robotic arms were slicing me open and he's controlling them like a drone or something. Not a drone itself, but like that remote thing.
I think that's already happening.
Oh my
At least
gosh.
I've seen that tech. I know it exists, so yeah.
So then that guy can just be market value if he's the best surgeon in the world. If you can afford him, you don't have to go to Singapore or whatever.
Yeah, and I mean, even better than that, and I think this is seriously not that far away, is putting that doctor under analysis and from a neural network, and the neural network watches them do like 100 surgeries.
Oh, shit.
And then after that, the neural network knows how to adapt to all those potential situations that a doctor would run into.
No. Oh, boy.
And then if you have a robotic arm that's, precise enough.
Wait a second. If that's true, then, I mean, but not even AI. AI would be a whole nother thing, but even just total mechanical. Okay, so think about the thing that makes your camera not shake, like anti-vibration stuff on a camera.
Yeah.
You could enhance a person's steadiness and precision mechanically, where you VR to them, and then there'd be robot arms even sitting right beside them that wouldn't even wiggle. Their tolerances would be even less and more precise. So you're controlling it with your hands and brain, and it'd be like auto-tune is for your voice, like you sing close and it knows what you were trying to do and can fix it. And so maybe you could even do that with precision-based things in surgery, like make exact cuts based on what you're already doing, just knowing what you were trying to do and reading your brain and making the corrections on the fly to make you superhuman as a surgeon.
And like another thing that's really cool too is like how in Photoshop you could zoom in on like a couple little pixels, and then your arm movement, which is like this, becomes like this, in pixel world. So you could do the same thing for physical actions. Like you zoom in on whatever vein or whatever, it's like this big.
Oh,
but it's this
gosh.
big, and then your arm movements are like this, but it's actually only moving.
Oh man. Okay, so you did some of that
like
visually.
that.
Let me see if I can explain that. You're totally right. So let's say you're working on a small, tiny vein behind a vertebrae or something, and and you could, you're really trying to cut basically a quarter of a millimeter like incision,
Yeah.
but you could in your VR zoom in really, really far.
It could just be huge.
Yeah, and then your 1 inch steady movement that you're able to make with your hand translates to the zoomed in quarter of a millimeter movement with precision and accuracy that you could never achieve.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I love thinking about that kind of stuff, and like it's the same for art tools in VR too. Like if you've tried any of the like tilt brush or anything like that, it's incredible the feeling of just scaling up everything and painting a little tiny area and then scaling it back down and looking at it from above.
Yep.
Like that's just such an incredible feeling. And I'm really interested in making more tools, more creative tools like that.
Oof. And that's satisfying to you probably because in all of our interfacing with technology and screens and things like that, we've always been aware of that it had its limits, that you could always see the pixels in TVs and things like that. So when they came out with Retina screen, it was like the first time it was like, well, there's no more pixels. I mean, I don't see them. I mean, maybe you kind of even could see them, but it seemed like there's always been these steps all along of, like, I know when we got a Sony TV in 1994 and still a big TV, old technology, not even HD, and I just was like, well, it looks like we're there. They've done it. That's it. I'm all right. It's no different than being at the football game. Here we go. It was just standard definition on a pretty decent TV in the 90s. And then HD, and you're like, oh, well, that's it. It's no different. And then 4K comes out, and you're like, oh, that HD shit was kind of blotchy. I get it, So, and now we've gone even so far into those things, and that there's something really satisfying about technology that it's always been behind real life, but we're going to enter a time that's going to just unlock everything where it's actually better than reality. Like when the resolution is so good that it is indistinguishable or even favorable to real life.
Dude,
that's scary though. It's going to unlock everything.
I keep thinking, I feel like we shouldn't waste this time. I really want to just talk about like old memories from the farm and stuff.
Okay, let's do that too.
I know it's kind of random.
Yeah, do it. I want to hear what's in your head. If you didn't catch the last episode, go back and listen to Steven on. We did it last Monday too. But Steven grew up as a teenager, friends with the people that we lived with when we were adults, and they just first started doing Emory. So his band would rehearse in the basement of the house that we were living in. So I was around Steven since he was 15, 16 years old, trying to do music and film and stuff like that. But what are your memories?
We were like a sub band to Emory. Like we would open for their like really early shows. And I remember we always thought like Emory were just like, who are these guys? They were like a fully grown adults who moved to a farm in Seattle because they like Nirvana.
That's kind of true.
And they were like, and Tooth and Nail, and they were like, we're gonna. And at first, we all just thought you guys were not legit, And I think it's funny looking back because you guys totally became legit, and we definitely
not
did not
legit in what way? Not talented or not what?
No, just like we just thought. I think at the time we thought like,
losers.
They'll never be a real band, you know. Like, but it turned out to be totally the opposite, and you guys just like launched, and it was awesome. But yeah, like I think that's probably good encouragement for people listening who like have their own bands and are like, maybe everyone thinks they're losers. But they're totally not. No, I mean, I think, and that's true of all creative pursuits. Like everyone's going to think you're lame at first, and you are going to be lame at first, and you just have to keep pushing until you become something awesome.
Well, the thing there that people get lost in is the narcissistic type of tendency to say there's haters and I know I'm good in my heart. And it's when I express myself and do my creative stuff, in my heart, I know it's me and I know that's all that matters. That's not true. That is where I take strong exception. The only way that it works to be a loser and an untalented idiot is if two things must happen. You have to continue until you gain skill, but you can do it for 10 years and gain no skill at all if you lie to and deceive yourself and think you're better than you are. You must aggressively pursue the harsh reality of understanding how bad you are. That's what is required. If you do that for 10 years, you'll be good at anything. If you know what I'm saying? So it's okay to be bad at it, but it's not okay to excuse you're being bad at it or not recognize what you're bad at. Like, I could play guitar and write stuff long before I could do it really well. And I knew that. So I knew at the same time that you thought we were losers that weren't any good, I could only have agreed with you. And it was my agreement with that fact that knew that Seth was not good enough at drums or didn't learn this right, or you need to work more on that, or I know my guitar's out of tune, it's driving me crazy, or I wish I could play fast like that, but I can't. This guy's better than me. That's so clear. We opened for this band, and they just blew us away, and that is true. And that they deserve all the credit in the world. We're not that good. Back to work.
And it's like continuous self-improvement, right? Like,
but you have to be honest about that. It's brutal. But that's
and not just with yourself. Like, you got to find other people who are peers who can, like, critique you.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And you guys helped us in that way, too. Like, you know, so you actually, like, helped produce one of our first albums. Mm-hmm. And when we were recording with you, we all got so much better because you were like, oh, no, it's got to be like this. It's got to be better. Like, you're fucking up here. Mm-hmm. Oh, sorry, I swore. I don't know if that's allowed on this.
It's allowed. Yeah, it's fine.
But yeah, like, that really helped us become more professional and just playing shows constantly. And, like, if you expose yourself to the public too, that's the worst. Because if you play and you're jamming and you're like you think you're doing so well, the audience is like, you have failed. So, like, learning how to get a reaction from the audience and how to engage them more directly, that was a process that I really enjoyed. But yeah, dude, when we were on that farm, like, okay, so I was thinking about the chickens. Do you remember the chicken?
Yeah, I do. You can tell it if you want to. Go ahead.
Am I allowed to?
Yeah, go ahead. If it's true, you can tell it. That's my part of the exercise of me podcasting is I'm trying to be as real as I can and tell the truth as much as I can, and I'm allowed to have done things I'm embarrassed about and talk about it and move on. It's
Break it down. Break it down.
It's all right. Go ahead.
So one time, one of the band members, I don't remember who, one of their girlfriends at the time brought a bunch of baby chickens as a present.
Cute little chickens.
For some reason, the chickens were brought to this farm.
Yeah.
That all these guys were living on and given to Emery as a present. And Matt, I think, having grown up on the farm, was like, I don't want those. They may look cute now, but they're going to become evil, you know. Yeah. And I was like, what are you talking about? They're so cute. Mm-hmm. And the guy who received them was like, I think it was Josh, was like, oh, these are great. We got to keep them. We got to raise them. This is amazing. We have been given the gift of life.
That's true. So far.
Sure enough, after like I swear it was like 2 weeks later, they were just full on adult chickens. It happened really fast from my perspective. And Matt was right. Adult chickens are horrible. They're like evil beasts. Yeah. Run around and just
like
make noise
or something.
And poop. Yeah.
If they didn't have feathers, they would just be scary, horrible. You know what I mean? Like I don't like them one bit. They do horrible things. All they would do is walk around and climb on everything and shit everywhere. They would get into our practice space and shit where our amps and guitars were and get in the house. I mean, we had garage. We lived in a not the ideal place, but still.
There was probably chicken poop inside the drums.
Right. I did
so
not
you
like
hit the drums. It's just chicken poop everywhere. So one day Matt was like, I don't know why, but you decided that you would catch a chicken and cut its head off.
Well, I will try to correct it as much as I can. I'm pretty sure that's what we all wanted to do. We said, Josh, you get rid of these chickens or we're going to get rid of them. We're going to kill them. It doesn't matter. We have to get rid of these chickens. They must go. And so I believe that would have been a group decision. And then Joel, I don't think anybody would have done it. I don't think I would have done it. I'm certain I wouldn't have done it. But Joel said, I'll do it. I'll chop that chicken's head off. So. And he did.
Yeah. He did.
And it was, I mean, it sounds.
Wait. Before that happened, though, so you had to catch the chicken.
Yeah, that part was
turned
the best.
Yeah, it's really hard. It's just like Zelda for anybody who's played Zelda and has run around and catch, chasing the chicken is actually really hard. It's even harder than it is in Zelda.
Yeah.
Like, we were literally chasing after it for like 2 hours.
It was so much fun. That was the part of the story that was just beautiful. It was just so fun and funny and pure. It was like chasing the chicken or whatever. And then when we did catch it. But I will say, whatever happened next, the mood shifted immediately when it happened. When Joel cut the head off of that chicken, and it was like, oh no, he did that. Like, we immediately all turned. It was like an exercise in mob mentality, because it was like, let's do it. And then as soon as Joel did it, we're like, Joel, you did that. You're bad, man. I can't believe you did that.
Okay, so that's true. For a moment, the mood changed, and it was like, oh shit, like, we killed a living being.
Yeah.
But we eat chicken every day.
Mm-hmm,
okay? So maybe it's important that we had this lesson, like, oh, that's what it's actually like. But I think what's hilarious, I'll always remember this, is after that, there was a chicken body that was disconnected from the head. And I don't know if it's you or Josh, but somebody decided to kick the chicken one time.
Oh, man.
And its body went... It actually made that sound, because like the sound comes through the neck when you like kick the body. It goes.
Yeah.
It sounds like a chicken like making its sound, and I know that there was some soccer happening with the chicken body.
It was fascinating. That's all I'll say about that.
So it changed from somber to pretty comical again.
Yeah, I went back to comical after that. But I told that story before, and I just like, it seemed normal at the time, and then when I've told the story, it's usually met with horror to other people, which I now understand that's not. I mean, I don't know what else you can do, but I have a weird relationship with that, with animals. I can't ever get a grip on it, because it really confuses me how to judge animal life or something. Because like my wife we have all these slugs in our garden. If this shows you if I've changed any over the years, hopefully get a little credit. But she made me get the snail bait poison. And I was just looking at all the pest control stuff at Fred Meyer, and I was like, gosh, this is so morbid. It's just like she had like 20 snails in her garden, and there was the stuff that just kills them. I'm just like, can't you just move the snails? I just don't want to do that. So I got a bucket, and I just grabbed all the snails and went and dumped them, a block away. I just didn't want to. I mean, they're just snails. There's no way they know anything or think anything or it matters, but it bothers me on some level now that I don't really know. And it's weird because.
That's good. You've developed empathy.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I don't even know if I should. I feel stupid about that. Like I mean, if that's true, here's the problem I have with it. It messes with your brain, because if I actually care about a slug, and I've said that, and that's true, well, that essentially would ruin my life if it was true, because of the amount of animal bug deaths. Not to mention the amount of actual horror that's happening to humans and people in my neighborhood and down the street and. Oh, yeah, in other countries. Like, if I'm actually going to spend 10 minutes on some snails, then how am I supposed to deal with Syria and the people over there? Just put them out of my mind and keep working with the slugs? You know what I mean? What about the pigs at the slaughterhouse? I don't know. I just don't. It's like you just can't. My logic tells me you cannot worry about little stuff like that, but then where would it be? And if I do, it just seems so silly. But my emotional response is, let me see if I can't carry that spider outside first. I don't know if that's a good impulse or bad.
No, I think it's good. I mean, it does reflect like who you are and what your sort of human empathy ability. Yeah. Like they say, people who torture animals in their youth are more likely to like murder people in their adulthood.
Yeah, I can see why, but not that causes it. It's just it's a sign, of course, of somebody that, if you're messing around with animals, you probably would do that on humans already. You just can't. You don't have the opportunity. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I don't know if it's true. Like Toy Story. There's that kid Andy's neighbor. I can't remember his name, Sid or something. He like tortures toys, right? Yeah. And I'm sure Sid grew up to be like a relatively normal human, and I think it's true for a lot of us. Like I remember me and Kyle, we used to just like burn toys. We loved burning toys. I remember we hated rollerblades so much because we were skateboarders that
Fruity Boots.
lit some. Yeah, we lit some fruit boots on fire just so we could ollie over them. Like we did crazy stuff like that, and like I don't know. I think we're fine, but yeah, I think it's sort of like video games. It's not really representative of who you are as an adult, but I think when you're a kid, you have not developed, or a young adult, like you have not fully developed that part of your brain that has
That's
empathy
true.
for other people and creatures, like I think a lot of bullying happens in high school for that reason. Like that same person as an adult will totally regret that and like change and like respect other people. But in high school, it's like this tumultuous environment and your brain isn't fully developed and blah, blah, blah. So like,
it's not that unlike chickens. I've seen, and when you talk about chickens being evil, I've seen it before it must just be kind of wired into humanity, but it reminds me of the same exact thing. Like I've seen chickens before where they're all sitting around happy, clucking, doing whatever. And one chicken, my friend pushed it or messed with it or something, and it fell off of where it was. It was probably 4 feet off the ground, and it fell to the ground, and it was obviously hurt. By that fall.
Oh, no.
And all the other chickens looked at it and said, let's get it. And they immediately all went and killed it. I've seen chickens do. That's what I'm saying. That's what they do. It's like, it's not that different, and it's horrible, but it's part of, I guess, survival of the fittest or selection, or I don't know. There's something wired in there. And you see children are not that different. They don't kill. They're not violent typically in a group, but they're mean as shit to whoever the weakest kid is in the room. It's just if there's a kid with a deformity or disability, or even just one that seems socially lower than the other kids, the rest of the kids will smell that and just go after that one. That's what being picked on is, kind of thing. And it may be led by one person, but the group follows that kind of a thing. So that's kids can be horrible. I'm seeing my even 4-year-olds like my daughter, they smell weakness and get after it. It's crazy.
Your daughter, can you give me an example?
No, well, yeah, they're just
happened?
like if one kid in the class at her preschool says something mean to another kid, and then somebody else laughs at it, they all just think, do that.
Oh,
it's
right.
funny. We like it. They don't think that it hurts that kid's feeling. They don't. That's not even the point. But they're attracted to hierarchy. Preying on weakness is easy and fun and feels effective. Like if you divorce that from empathy or anything, or just any kind of morality or whatever, then it seems natural. It's like it's a destructive behavior maybe, but it's at least engaging and fun and seems to make sense to everybody, so they just do it.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's the lizard part of our brain in action. It's just like the raw kind of do that kind of thing, survival of the fittest. But it's like a higher parts of our brain that like are capable of empathy. But empathy takes some effort,
Yeah, but it's more than just empathy. It's also more just like we're at a point where our society is one that we've decided to do many things for good that are against our nature. So that's always going to be hard. So there's things in our nature that sexually, for instance. I mean, your typical sexual desire is to have sex with many, many people, and we've decided to not do that. But you can't really say that that's not biologically in there. You just say we've decided a better way. We're typically defensive and violent and stuff too, but we decided we don't want to have a violent society. But of course, violence comes natural. We understand that, So we've decided it's not even anything other than we've all decided together for good reason that we don't want to engage in a bunch of behaviors that we must at least acknowledge we're designed to do naturally, or our structures and biology at least want us to do that. However you think. So that's why, it's just weird to me to not acknowledge that some of our deep drives that we have, at least. But those things are in there, I think.
Yeah.
We've just decided we're going to coach ourselves out of it, and that's a good thing. But it's hard work, and it requires the upper parts of your brain to do.
Yeah. This reminds me of just like hanging out at the farmhouse, and I remember you guys had all the bunk beds, and we used to just talk until like 4 a.m. and you would just philosophize exactly like this. This show is exactly that. It's like, and you and Toby together just going off. I could see why you have like a talk show now, because it's exactly what you guys naturally do, like 90% of the time.
I don't see how it's what everybody doesn't do. It seems quite natural to me. But yeah, that's I think some of the best stuff is just getting around people where you get comfortable enough to be able to say whatever and then just see where it goes, kind of thing. Like that's a fun thing to do. I don't know what's more fun than that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. I was just imagining like me and Ryan and Kyle, if we tried to do the same thing, what would happen? It would, first of all, it'd be hard to get Ryan to talk.
Yeah.
But Kyle would do incredible, I think. I hope Kyle's listening to this. We should get him to watch this.
Yeah, he might. He might. I don't know if he is or not. But I wonder though if like something that occurs to me is my style of being. I suppose it's an extreme or a very forward, extroverted kind of thing. So it's hard for me to imagine other people don't like doing, for instance, what I like doing. That's always been a struggle for me to understand. If I like something, how other people don't like it. It's hard for me to understand people not being like me. It really is.
Yeah, that's something.
But I clearly know most people are not like me, so there's the tension.
Yeah, I think we're pretty weird people. Like, I think we're both people who have pursued crazy dreams and ideas that most people would never risk, and we've been willing to take the risk to the maximum. For me, it's like continuous. I'm on this loop of like, okay, I've got this idea, and I'm going to do whatever it takes. I don't care about money or anything. It's all about making this idea. Then I achieve that idea, and then it's like, it's either successful or it's not, and then I start over again, and I take all the maximum risk to do the next thing. You know?
That is extreme, but I would say the one group that at least has you beat would be gamblers. Gamblers have that impulse to the most.
Yeah,
so
that's true. That's true. Well, hopefully, the things I'm doing have more positive.
Yeah, of course.
Effect on the world. I would hope so. Anyways, but yeah, I think like you have to pursue high risk, high reward if you want anything special.
Yeah, but you don't have to be high risk. What you're trying to do is find the lowest risk that has high potential reward. You don't necessarily want high risk. You want acceptable risk for possible high reward is what you're really looking for. Like, you don't look for more risk. That's not the idea. It's just you want to be the person that recognizes the risk is not exactly what all the other scared people think it is. So I'm always looking for, that's actually not that risky. But it's enough to scare off other people. Thus is born my opportunity. Is the way I think of it.
Yeah.
Like moving to Seattle, start a band. It's not. I mean, it's risky, but not in any real way. Was it risky? Run out of money, go home, call your dad. What's the worst that can happen? But most people wouldn't move across the country and start a band and leave everybody that But it's just not that risky. I always said, well, we can go home. But I know that's enough that other people don't do it. Then we got to Seattle and we could spend unlimited, uninterrupted time on what we wanted to, writing music. So to me, that's a very low risk, high possible reward, and it worked.
Yeah. That's true. That's amazing, man. I mean, I never thought about that you guys could just go home. But I think it's also incredible that, like, you got you guys all together kind of bonded and were able to do that together, like convince each other, like, it's all a good idea. Let's do this at the same time. That's right. Really lucky. I think, like, the risk, or like not the risk, but like the fact that you guys were all at the same level in the same place in life to where you could all kind of do that, you know?
That happens on so many occasions where there's been a thing like, when you're like, I dare you to jump over that campfire. You won't do it. Yes, I will. I'll do it. And then you just do it. If you take that's what I've always tried to incubate things like that, where you get a bunch of people, except for instead of jumping over fires, like, I'll quit my job and go on tour. I'll do everything. I'll move to Seattle. You get that mentality going for productivity. Like we did stuff like that where we were going to move into an apartment. We decided, let's save all the money from that and move into the racing trailer and just drive to venues and record labels. And so I said, I'll do it. If you'll do it, you won't do it. I will. Okay. And then me and Toby get wound up about it and then go tell Devin. He's like, okay. Because we're already convinced of some crazy idea. And then you just bring people along and you just keep on going.
That's incredible, man. That's something I've really struggled with, is like, a lot of the projects I've done have been ultimately kind of solo efforts where I'm just pushing
I'm not built
so hard. And sometimes it just ends up being me in a room, like, by myself, just grinding on something to finish it. And it's been like that with a few music videos. And now it's like that with this game again. And that's something I still haven't unlocked the secret to that. It's hard to get other people to believe in your dreams.
Yeah.
I think you have to sort of either make it their dream or make it like a universally loved thing, you know, like Steve Jobs is like so good at like taking what seemed like his dream and making it like so important to the world in the minds of the people around him. Like, you're not just making this thing, you're making this thing that is going to like positively change the world, right? And then now it's like a cliche, like, we're doing this to make the world a better place. It's like a startup cliche, and you can't say that anymore because it's a cliche, but it's ultimately, it's like what you should be doing, right? Like, you should be doing something that's trying to affect the world positively, you know?
Yeah, I mean, if you got, that's what I'm saying. We're not risking whether or not we actually have food to eat, or if somebody's going to not allow us into the ER if we're sick. So we're in a free enough place to, yeah, it seems reasonable to try to impact your small culture, local, whatever it is, positive. It seems reasonable once our basic needs are kind of met for the most part. At least mine are. So,
Yeah.
and that's not necessarily true for everybody, and certainly not globally, but it's like, if you have privilege, okay, now use it. It's kind of the way I look at it, at least.
Yeah. Sometimes it's hard to justify art in that way, though, you know, like, is me making a painting or making a song or making a game, is that actually making the world a better place, or is that just something I feel like I need to do?
Yeah, that's true, but you can't, if you take that the other way too far, then you get immediately lost, because then you would have to play this reductive game of, well, what is the most total good, and then everybody work on that, and that's not real. That doesn't make sense.
Yeah, that's true.
You can't put all efforts of it. It's like where Christianity seems to mess up with me with evangelism or getting people converted. Like, if you set that as the only thing that matters, the most important thing, then you've lost everything else to some degree, or over leveraged toward that or something. Like, yeah, we could. I mean, it's hard to make that argument though. But if you really say I want to make the world a better place, it's impossible to name what exactly that would be, or how many people or what resources should go into it, whether it be bed nets in Africa or stopping climate change or equality. And I mean, if you do that, well, let's end all this racism equality talk here, and let's all work on saving lives from malaria. That doesn't make sense. So you at least need to do both. And of course, you need art and all this other stuff too. So you just got to do the best, and you won't be effective if it's not something you're really motivated and driven for. So that should solve some of it too. You shouldn't feel guilty about what your drives are most of the time.
Yeah, that's true. I think people sort of naturally go to the place they need to be to provide value for everybody else.
You're going to be
else,
most
right?
effective at what you're most motivated to do, permitting that it's a valid thing or a productive, positive thing at least. At least if it's not negative. I mean, somebody wants to do bad stuff or go be greedy or make money or hurt people. Well, yeah, maybe not that. But if you have a drive to do something that's at least remotely positive, like create something, I think that's tons of things. And I would say, just from seeing music happen, it's like, wow, there's careers and all this economy generated out of creativity. That's one thing that's still better, maybe more forward thinking than at least manufacturing and stuff like that is. I'm not saying it's bad, but it does create jobs and economic growth that lift people out of poverty. I'm not claiming music lifts people out of poverty directly, but there is a through line there to, if Emery, for instance, sold 500,000 records, now what if those were sold at $10 each and every concert ticket? I mean, there's millions of dollars have been generated by Emery. Now, they didn't go in my pocket, but people paid each other, people had jobs, people had things to go to. The whole thing goes around and around, and it could have just not existed. So there's a positive outcome of that, because wealth is one of the best things that helps people, move up in life, is to be able to have more stuff. So economic growth itself is maybe arguably one of the best ways to help anything is economic growth.
This kind of reminds me of the future of I think it's not too long before like a lot of people start losing jobs due to technology and AI and automatic cars and all that stuff. So I think in the future, like, people will have to decide they won't need a job, because resources will be taken care of. They'll have food, they'll have, whatever. It'll be either cheap, extremely cheap, or completely free for all that kind of stuff. Like, your basic needs will be met. So it'll be up to everyone to decide, how do I provide value to the world? Because that's all a job is, right? Like, you're providing value somehow to someone else. It's
a crazy question that we could talk about another time. I know you got to go, but it would be a crazy question. If you didn't need to work, what would you do? And for a lot of people, I would suggest it would actually be horrifying. Like, they'd think, you know what I mean? Like that. I think that'd actually be its own problem. It's like, no, don't worry about it. You're good on needs. Do you want to do anything? And their answer will be no. A lot of people's answer
No.
will not have a lot of people will not have a strong motivation in a direction,
Yeah.
and that'll be a sad people. Their needs will be met, and they still won't have anything they want to do other than maybe still be a consumer, entertained or something, but go on vacation or whatever. But
I think people will do it automatically.
I hope
think it's so built into us to find a purpose that people will search and they will find ways to provide value to each other, you know?
I hope so. We'll see.
But you're
I'm
right.
not
at the
as
same time,
optimistic for a lot of people. A lot of people seem like pretty lazy. I don't know if lazy is the right word, but don't have a lot of drives, you know? Like if you gave them more money, they would just sit at home.
I think a lot of that is cultural programming. I think seriously, a lot of that is just what's expected of them from the world around them.
Yep.
And like a lot of people just follow the patterns of those around them.
Yep.
So
most people.
I've really like living in Japan kind of showed me that like people do such weird things there. Sometimes they seem really weird to you because you're from another culture and you have a different set of code like running in your head.
Mm-hmm.
I think of it as code because I'm a programmer, but it's just patterns. It's like behavioral patterns. And you go there and it's like, wait, why is it like that? Why do people sit in their room and like make plastic models? Or like, why are they so diligently doing something like that? And it's just a different type of expectation from the world around them. And I think if you change that, if you change culture and you change those patterns, then essentially you've changed people. So like that will happen.
No, that's good. And it gives even more credence to what you were saying about why is it good to create art? Because again, instead of freaking political policy, culture is changed more so by its art and entertainment and those things. So if we want to shape culture, then good, do that.
Yeah, that's one thing that drives me for sure. And gaming culture to some extent, if you can change the way people play games and you can make games healthy. That's something I really emphasize when I'm designing games, is making them healthy, making them improve people's lives instead of being like a drain that sucks time and money out of them.
Absolutely.
But something that like boosts them up is something I'm really passionate about.
Good. Well, Edwon, thank you. Is that how you say it? Edwon?
Yeah. I know you're used to calling me Steven.
Yeah, I'm used to calling you Steven,
fine.
but Edwon's catchy and it's cool looking, and your website's great and everything else. So
Thanks,
check
man.
out everything that Edwon is doing. And I forgot your website again. Sorry. Say it again. It's Edwon something.
There's Edwon.tv, which is like my personal stuff. And then there's EdwonStudio.com, which is my company. And I'm on YouTube and all that kind of stuff too. I make a lot of crazy videos.
Yes, and I enjoy them very much, and am happy for all the stuff that you're doing. And
Hey, one of my first videos was Matt mows the lawn. Remember that?
Do you have it still?
Yeah, I have it somewhere. It's not on YouTube, but I should put it up.
Yeah, you should put it up. I'd like to see that just to remember what we looked like and what we were doing then.
All right, man. Is that it? Is that it for this here podcast?
Yep, we're done. Thank you.
Okay, cool. Thanks, man.
Okay, talk to you soon, Steven.